Today, we are going to be previewing the Los Angeles Chargers for the 2025 season. Before we get into the video, make sure to leave a like if you enjoy and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content and you want to see more. But without further ado, let's get into this Chargers preview. First, looking at their additions and losses. First, starting in the running back room, they bring in 2 new running backs and they let 2 running backs walk. They bring in Omarion Hampton, who they took in the first round out of North Carolina. They bring in Najee Harris from Pittsburgh, and they let go J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Overall, now I know Dobbins was pretty solid last year for the Chargers. He averaged just under 5 yards a carry, got 9 touchdowns, almost a 100-yard rusher, but he didn't play every game. If he played every game, he would have had 1,000 yards. I think I said 100 there, but he was almost a 1,000-yard rusher, and he would have if he played more games. So he overall had a good year last year on the Chargers, but I think when you combine him and Gus Edwards and you replace them with Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris, I think overall that is a improvement in the running back room. I really liked Omarion Hampton coming out of college. Now, I don't know if he's going to be like Genty in his rookie year, but I think he can easily, now I know he was the second highest picked running back, but I think he can easily be the second best rookie running back out of a very good running back class. I really liked him out of North Carolina, and I really liked him coming into the draft. I thought he'd go higher. I thought the Broncos would take him, but he ends up going to the Chargers. I know they were very close in draft pick position, but I really liked him. And Najee Harris, I know he's had his down years with Pittsburgh, but I'm pretty sure if I remember, he actually had a decent season last year with Pittsburgh. There's all the things about how slow he's gotten. He had 1,200 yards. He had 7 touchdowns. His yards per carry were just okay, but overall it was a fine season last year for Najee. And if he's going to be your running back 2 behind a guy like Hampton, I think he's an upgrade over Gus Edwards. And I think Hampton, maybe not an upgrade over Dobbins right now, but I think very quickly he'll become the better running back than Dobbins and better running back than all 4 of these guys. So I think overall they upgraded at that running back position. Then in the second round, they grabbed Trey Harris, who I'm not sure if he's signed his rookie contract yet. I know there's been that whole thing with him. But I liked him out of Ole Miss. You replaced Josh Palmer, who Josh Palmer's been on this team for a while, and he's been very good for you. Last year he had 500 yards and a touchdown, so I guess not his best season, but targets-wise, he actually didn't get as many targets as maybe you wanted out of a guy like Josh Palmer, especially in comparison to Quentin Johnston. But over the course of these last few years, especially when Herbert's been on the team, before they got McConkey, Palmer's been their guy next to like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So it is unfortunate to see him go, but if you can, come to terms with a guy like Trey Harris, I think he'll be better for you in the long run next to McConkey and Quentin Johnston. So I think they overall upgraded at running back and receiver. They bring in a guy like Mekhi Becton to play on that O-line. Now, they lost some interior O-linemen, but they didn't really play much. And I think Mekhi Becton's honestly an upgrade. He was a very solid player on a very good Eagles O-line. He obviously had his struggles on the Jets at tackle, but they move him over to guard in Philly, and he actually had a very good season. So I like him in that O-line as a really big body for this running style offense with, Harbaugh and Greg Roman. They bring in Deshaun Hand to replace Poona Ford. Honestly, I think I like Poona Ford just a little bit better than Deshaun Hand, personally. I think Poona Ford's a very solid run defender, and his numbers aren't always the best, but you don't really see him making a ton of mistakes. So I like Poona Ford as a good D tackle, but they bring in Deshaun Hand. I don't think it's like a crazy downgrade. I don't think Deshaun Hand's a bad player by any means. I think they're very similar. So I think it's kind of a wash there. And I do think they downgraded at the corner position, bringing in Dante Jackson in comparison to the losses of Christian Fulton and Asante Samuel. Now, I know Asante Samuel was injured most of last year, but we know how good Asante Samuel can be. Now, he hasn't gotten signed yet, as I'm recording this video, I'm pretty sure. I don't know why. There has to be a reason that maybe we don't know, because I feel like he's a good enough player to be on a team by now. So if you're looking at last season, obviously Asante Samuel's not a big loss, but as a player, I think it's a tough loss for the Chargers. And then again, Christian Fulton, I think the Chiefs picked him up. He had a good season last year, if I remember correctly, with the Chargers. So I think that's a big loss. And Dante Jackson has just been a little bit inconsistent throughout the most of his career, whether it's inconsistent in terms of whether he's playing or not and healthy. And then when he's on the field, he can make plays for you, he can get interceptions, but he can be inconsistent in coverage, and he's not the best run defender because he's a little smaller. So I think I'd rather have Christian Fulton and Asante Samuel than a guy like Dante Jackson. So I think that's the only real position they downgraded in this offseason was the cornerback position, but they still have very good secondary. That was a part of a very good defense, which we'll get to later in the video. But before we get into the defense, we have to talk about the offense. Last year, the Chargers offense was, in terms of scoring, they were 11th in the league, so very solid offense. They had a very, honestly, they were kind of somewhat in the middle in terms of passing and offensive attack and rushing. I mean, you start when looking at this offense, you start with Justin Herbert. We all know that everyone wants to talk about Justin Herbert and his playoff inconsistencies and how he doesn't always show up in the playoffs. And while that may be true, you can't deny that Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback. I mean, last year he only threw 3 interceptions and almost 4,000 yards. Like, he was 200 yards short of throwing for 4,000. He had a very good year last year. He's always had good seasons ever since getting in. I mean, he had one of the better rookie seasons of any quarterback in the history of football. So he's always been a good quarterback in the regular season, and he's just got to put it together in the playoffs. So in terms of discussing Herbert in the playoffs, that's more of a wait and see. But when it comes to just him as a quarterback, we all know how good Herbert is. And I think you saw him be very good and very comfortable in this new offense when Harbaugh came in. Because he's, in his first 3 seasons, he threw double-digit interceptions. And in 2023, he threw 7 picks. But in his first year in this new system, while his yards weren't as high, while his touchdowns weren't as high, his interceptions were significantly lower. So I think that's a good sign in the future under this offense, because it's a very run-heavy offense, run-friendly offense. Last year with Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and this year with Hampton and Najee Harris. And I think that really helps out Herbert as a whole. And another thing that helps out Herbert is his receiving core. Obviously, we all know how good Ladd McConkey was last year as a rookie. 80 catches, nearly 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns. It was a fantastic year for Ladd McConkey as a rookie. And he is such a reliable slot guy. You know he's going to get open. You know he's going to catch the ball. And you know you can trust him. And him and Herbert are going to be a very good connection for many years to come. But they got to get the pieces around McConkey. Now, obviously, the big name, the big question mark at this receiver position is Quentin Johnston. Now, we all want to talk about Quentin Johnston and his drop problems, which are warranted. But last year, he had 50-plus catches, 700-plus yards, and 8 touchdowns. Again, his catch percentage was very low, and he had his drops. We all know Quentin Johnston and his drop problems. But statistically, he actually had a very decent season in terms of yards, catches, touchdowns. And I still think that Quentin Johnston can be a good receiver. And I think year 2 in this offense, year 2 playing alongside a guy like Ladd McConkey, and hopefully a better receiver room as a whole, bringing in a guy like Trey Harris, I think Quentin Johnston still can be a good receiver if he can just work on those drop problems. And even with drop problems, he still put up good stats. So even if he's at his current point, he still can put up good stats. It's just how good can he get if he gets rid of the drop problems, he can become even better. But right now, he's still not a bad receiver. It's just how much can you trust him, obviously, is the big key there. And then again, we talked about Trey Harris. Outside of them, they have Jalen Reagor, who honestly last year didn't really play much. He's been all over the place since he entered the NFL. Not the best, draft pick out of him. A guy like Darius Davis, he got, again, not too much. He caught 2 touchdowns in only 13 catches. So you like that out of a guy like Darius Davis as he enters his 3rd season in the league. And then they bring in Keandre Lambert-Smith, who, I'll be honest, I'm not too familiar with Keandre Lambert-Smith. Reports seem like he's going to be their Mike Williams replacement. He's a 6'1" receiver from Auburn. Seems like he's having himself a decent training camp as well. So I think he could be a nice piece as that 4th receiver next to McConkey, Johnston, and Trey Harris. It seems like he's having himself a good offseason. So that could be a nice pick out of the 5th round as well in this year's draft. But overall, this probably is the best receiver core Herbert has had. Maybe not the best receiver core Herbert's had, the most promising and most potential receiver core he's had, because he's had old Keenan Allen and older Keenan Allen, older Mike Williams. And another guy we didn't talk about in the receiver room is Will Dissly, their number 1 tight end. They also bring in Tyler Conklin, who's just a fine, backup veteran tight end. But Will Dissly last year, he had some stretches, I'm pretty sure. We actually put together some decent games with the Chargers. I mean, he got a decent amount of targets. He had 2 touchdowns. He's a fine tight end. He'll catch the ball when you throw it to him. He's a very reliable tight end, which honestly, if you're not going to be some superstar tight end, you just want a guy that can catch the ball, and I think Will Dissly can do that to a decent extent. He's not this game-breaking tight end that's going to win you games or anything, but he's just a fine guy. And I think once they get some receivers outside of McConkey that they trust in the long term, they have the running back in Hampton. I think they can maybe focus more on getting a tight end next year. I thought they could have maybe went tight end in this draft, but they obviously went with Hampton. So we'll see what they do at that tight end position, because they're still missing that future tight end. They right now just have like a stopgap guy in Will Dissly. And lastly on this offense, the O-line. Now last year the O-line did give up its fair share of sacks. I think they were maybe top 10-ish in sacks allowed. But I do think the O-line will be pretty decent this year. Yeah, they gave up a decent amount of sacks, but overall, I actually kind of like the O-line. First of all, your tackle room and your tackles positions are completely set. Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater may be one of the better tackle duos in all of football already. And Joe Alt's played 1 year in the league, and Slater's played like 5 years, something like that, in the league. My math is correct. And they're already one of the best tackle duos in the league. So you're completely set at your offensive tackle positions. Now, outside of that, there's still some question marks. You bring in Mekhi Becton, who, again, when he moved to guard on Philly, he actually had himself a solid season on a very good Eagles O-line. Now, was that a product of being on a very good Eagles O-line? Who knows? But overall, he had himself a solid year at guard. Bradley Bozeman, their center, he's just a okay veteran center. He's not some crazy, really good center or anything, but he's a fine center, fine run blocker. I think that's his strength. You're not mad if Bradley Bozeman's your center, or not center, left guard. He played center, I think, when he was on the Panthers, so that's why I kept calling him a center. But no, he's a fine guard. And then their center is Zion Johnson, who they drafted 3 years ago out of Boston College. And last year, PFF, if whatever you want to take with PFF, they had him as the top 50 guard last year. Gave up an okay amount of sacks, a little bit too many maybe, but the whole line was giving up sacks. So I think he's a fine center for you, but I like the potential in the future of a guy like Zion Johnson, especially as the rest of the O-line continues to improve. Hopefully he will improve as well. So I think this is the best O-line Herbert's had. It's one of the best run games he's had, and the future is bright at receiver, and I guess not really tight end. The future is bright at receiver. So I think Herbert, once again, in this offense, in year 2 of this offense, people don't talk about the importance of having stability in an offense, in a system. It's so much, it's just so much more helpful when you can just run it back with the same system. So I think Herbert, in year 2 in this system, where he played very good, smart football, even though his passing yard numbers weren't as high, he only threw 3 picks. And I think in year 2, with a much improved team, I think they'll have another very good offensive season. They were 11th in scoring last year. I think they can potentially crack the top 5. Maybe they'll be more like 7th or 8th best offense, but I like where this offense is headed. Now, as excited as I am about this Chargers offense, I'm even more excited about the Chargers defense. Now, last year, this Chargers defense was number 1 in scoring. They only allowed 300 points total the entire year long. Their passing defense, their secondary, was very good. Their run defense was very good. They just didn't give up anything. They were the number 1 defense in rush. They allowed the fewest rushing touchdowns in the league, and they were in the top half of the NFL in passing touchdowns allowed. And first of all, looking at this defensive line, now you do lose a guy like Joey Bosa, who I actually didn't get to talk. I didn't talk about him in the losses. Now Bosa, he's been injured the last few years, and he definitely is aging and regressing. But he still made the Pro Bowl last year, only playing 14 games. And when healthy, he is still a good edge rusher, so that is definitely a loss for them. But I kind of like that they're moving on from the younger Joey Bosa, and they're bringing in Tuli Tuipulotu. I think that's how you say it. That's how, I could be mispronouncing it. Tuli Tuipulotu. I'm a big fan of Tuli Tuipulotu. He is a emerging young pass rusher. And again, I like how they're going the youth movement. And you love what Joey Bosa gave this organization. Obviously, one of the better Chargers players in recent history. But I really love that they're going in the younger direction with this position, because you still have Khalil Mack, who's older. So I think you got to get some youth in there. And I love Tuipulotu. He had 9 sacks last year and didn't even play a ton. And his pressure, like, he doesn't necessarily generate a ton of pressure compared to the 9 sacks he gets. But he can still improve his ability to pressure the quarterback and get to the quarterback, which not only will improve his sack numbers, but will just improve his production and the overall D-line production as a whole. And he's entering his 3rd year, and he's only 22. I think he's going to be 22 entering his 3rd year, which is just crazy. You'd think, oh, he's in his 3rd year, he's probably like 24, 25. No, he's only 22. So I love Tuli Tuipulotu, and to pair him alongside Khalil Mack, who despite his age is still a very good pass rusher, edge rusher. It was just 1 year ago where he had 17 sacks, and he is still one of the better run defenders when it comes to his sort of pass rush, edge rush position. So I think the duo of Tuipulotu and Khalil Mack can be very good for the Chargers. And I like the youth movement they're going in there. And now focusing on the D-line, again, we mentioned Deshaun Hand, just a okay, solid, veteran guy. Very similar to Poona Ford. You pair him alongside Teair Tart, another reliable veteran run defender. Teair Tart can give you some pass rush as well, but he's definitely more suited as a run defender. Otito Ogbonnia, probably mispronouncing that one too. Another just fine D-tackle. Now he's much younger than a guy like Deshaun Hand or Teair Tart. He's entering his 4th season. So obviously he still has potential. But the interior of the D-line is just all right. They bring in Jamari Caldwell in the 3rd round, so maybe he can provide you some future upside at that position. You still got Justin, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He was a rookie last year out of the 4th round, so you still have young pieces who could potentially develop and help out this D-line, interior D-line in the long run. But they're definitely more strong at that pass rush position with Tuipulotu and Khalil Mack. And I also like Kyle Kennard, who they got in the 4th round. And then the linebackers, I'm I mean, Deion Henley had himself a great season tackle number wise last year in his rookie year with the Chargers. Really liked what you saw out of Deion Henley again. Or no, that was his second year. I I said rookie year accident mainly because Junior Colson was in his rookie year, but also because Deion Henley didn't really play much his first year. And the first year he actually really played a ton. He had 1 interception, 8 pass deflections or PBUs, whatever. He got a sack, but he had 147 tackles. Now, he did have a decently high missed tackle percentage. So he was still missing tackles here and there, but again, it was his second year in the league and his first year really playing. So you can expect those numbers to get better. But again, I think missed tackle numbers are a little higher on linebackers because they're having to make so many tackles. But you really liked what you saw out of Deion Henley in his first year. And then a guy like Junior Colson, the rookie from Michigan. Harbaugh got a lot of his Michigan guys. But Junior Colson was one of them in his rookie year. Didn't play a ton, only like 30% of the snaps on defense. But he managed to get himself... how many tackles did he get? He managed to get himself 30 tackles. He didn't miss a ton of tackles, but again, he probably didn't get many attempts to make tackles. And then you also got a veteran in Denzel Perryman alongside those two guys. So I like the linebacker room. Again, a lot of youth on this team. Tuipulotu, Henley, Colson, Agbania. That's just on the front 7. A lot of youth that has shown a lot in their NFL reps that they've gotten. But I think the real strength of this defense is the secondary. Headlined, obviously, by Derwin James, one of the best safeties in football, continues to be one of the best safeties in football. You don't have to worry about Derwin James. The only thing you have to worry about Derwin James is maybe him getting suspended for the hard hits he makes in a lot of games. But outside of that, you don't have to worry about Derwin. You know how good Derwin's going to be. And pairing him alongside Alohi Gilman, you make yourself a pretty good safety duo there at the back end. I liked what I saw out of Gilman last year. He's still only 27. Again, you see some inconsistencies with Gilman, but he can be a very solid run defender alongside Derwin. And they're still decent to good coverage guys as well. So they kind of can do both. Now, Gilman's a free safety, so he doesn't need to... He's not as much of a need in terms of run defense because he's the free safety. But he's not a bad run defender by any means for being a smaller free safety. So you really like that safety duo. And then the corners, there's a little bit of, question marks with the corners, but you definitely have a vision with the cornerback room. First, Talib Still had a very good rookie season. He had the game against Atlanta where he had the 2 interceptions and the pick 6, which basically ended Kirk Cousins' tenure with the Falcons, which is kind of interesting looking back on it, considering that basically was what did it. But he had himself a very good rookie year. Cam Hart out of Notre Dame, while maybe he didn't have as good of a rookie season as a guy like Talib Still, you definitely saw the flashes and the potential of Cam Hart and what he can do in the NFL. And you're not mad that he is your starting corner going into his second year. Again, he's only a rookie, so any inconsistencies you can deal with for now, because if he continues to develop, he can get rid of those and be a very good corner alongside Talib Still. Now, the one question mark in the secondary is Dante Jackson. Again, he's just been inconsistent through his career. He'll get interceptions, he'll make plays, but also make plays for the other team and let receivers get open. He's probably just a fine bridge corner while you work on your true Asante Samuel, Christian Fulton replacement. I mean, you got Benjamin St-Juste, who's obviously been very inconsistent in his career so far. He's probably not the future. Jasir Taylor, I mean, he's a 6th-round pick, drafted in 2022, so maybe you can still get something out of him. But yeah, you're really needing that third guy next to Cam Hart and Talib Still. But the secondary, with a rookie Cam Hart, with a rookie Tareeb Still, was 7th in passing yards allowed, 12th in touchdowns allowed, and 8th in interceptions in total. And all you did was, because Asante Samuel didn't really play that year, all you did was swap Christian Fulton for Dante Jackson. So outside of Dante Jackson, this secondary was very good last year. And I think it will continue to get better, considering that you still have Cam Hart in his second year, and you have Tareeb Still in his second year, and you have a very good safety duo in Derwin and Gilman. It's actually crazy that they got Cam Hart and Tareeb Still in the same year in the same round. That's crazy. But overall, Chargers defense, now will they be number one in scoring? Who knows? That's a pretty tough mark to reach again. But I think once again, they will be a top 10 defense combined with a top 10 offense. And I think they'll have themselves a very good season. Quickly looking at their special teams. Because you got to show love to the special teams, even if it's just a quick little look. I mean, punting, J.K. Scott. He's a fine veteran punter. Don't know too much about J.K. Scott. But Cameron Dicker, who I am aware of Cameron Dicker, very accurate last year, 93% from field goal kicks, 92% from extra points. He was pretty decent from long range as well. He was 9 for 11 from 50 plus, and he's only 24. So you like Cam Dicker as your kicker, Dicker the kicker, as your kicker for the future. And then at the return, their main return guy looks like he's going to be Darius Davis, who, again, as a receiver, I like the potential of Darius Davis, but his role is going to be as a return man, it looks like, this season. He had 19 returns, only 200 yards, so I guess not the best year as a punt returner. Slightly better on the kick return department. But he's a 5'8", 165-pound receiver, so he's got to have speed, and he's got to be able to make plays in the return game. So I think it'll be a very fine, solid special teams unit. And now before we get into the schedule, prediction, ceiling, and floor, if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are enjoying the content over here. Looking at their schedule, it's a very difficult, it's a relatively hard schedule. I don't know their exact strength of schedule. Let me quickly find that. They have the 12th hardest schedule in the league. I mean, you play in the AFC West, one of the better divisions in football, with the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Chiefs. You play the NFC East, which has the Commanders, has the Eagles, have the Cowboys. Those are no easy games. Now, you do get the AFC South, which is nice, because outside of the Texans, the Jags, Titans, and Colts are all winnable games. But when you have the schedule that you have, it's just going to be tough. Or when you're in the division your schedule's just going to be tough every year. Now, I do think they can get a game off the Raiders, get a game off the Chiefs, or not the Chiefs, the Broncos. I think they can get 2 games for the floor. I think they can get those 2 games. I think they can beat the Titans. I think they can beat the Giants. And then that puts them right now at 4 wins for their floor. And then I think you can get 2 of, like the Jags, the Raiders, maybe the second game against the Raiders, maybe get the Colts. And I think their floor is 6-11. Because again, there are things that could, let them down and not let them reach a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense like they basically had, like they almost had last year. But I don't see how much worse their offense or defense is going to get. I don't think their defense is always going to be in the 20s, or their offense is going to be in the 20s. So I don't think they have a very low floor. So I do like 6-11 as their floor. That's more their schedule, not their team. Now looking at the ceiling for, I mixed up the edit here. Their ceiling is supposed to be 12 wins, and their prediction is supposed to be 9-8. So I have the Chargers ceiling at 12-5. So this is their ceiling, and I have their prediction at 9-8. Because again, if they have a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense, they can win a lot of games. Now, last year, when they did have the 11th scoring offense and the number 1 scoring defense, their record was 11-6. So if they do that again, they can get 12 wins as their ceiling. But I just don't know how I feel, because I feel like they have a lot of youth that they're relying on, mainly in the receiver room, the linebacker room, the secondary. There's a lot of youth they're relying on, and I think that could really vary your record over a season. So that's why I do have their prediction more at 9-8. I know it's a 2-win decrease from what they did last year, and they pretty much just got better. But I think this is more of a fact that the Raiders, I think, are better. The Broncos are getting better. I think the Chiefs are still going to play what they normally play. I think their opponents got better, which is why, especially in the division, which is why maybe I have a slight decrease in wins from last year. But I still think they're going to fight for the playoff spot. And it's all about, can Herbert win a playoff game? That's the real question that it all comes down to. It doesn't matter how good their defense is in the regular season, how good their offense is in the regular season, if they can't win playoff games. So that's the big question mark with the Chargers. It's more of a wait and see, because the team is good. There's no denying that. It's, can they get it done when it matters most? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, and then subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.